So the first point is we started out by having a Hispanic support group. Okay, that's pretty easy because we had followed the women and then the LGBT and then the African American. Of course, you want to have Hispanic. And then we said, oh, well, of course, and we want to have a Hispanic specialist group, so that we can do Hispanic work. Here's what we've learned. Hispanics don't belong in a specialist group. They belong in the mainstream. Why? The campaign we've just done for HP, invented by a creative who is Hispanic, was we put 100 people in the room. And, there were Anglos and Mexicans and this. And we said, okay, now you self-identify. Whose kids are these? And they all said, well, of course, the tall, white, blonde-haired guy will be married to the tall, white, blonde-haired lady. And they all said, and 75% of them were wrong. And that was an idea from a Hispanic kid who said, I want to show the color of America, and I want to do it for HP printers, and we're going to pick the pictures of the wall of the families of America. And they were all diverse. And that was such a story, and it was such a powerful moment for me to go, wait, I get it. This is the power of putting Hispanics in the front line, not in a room.
That's fantastic. My business is a business of ideas, of strategies, of creativity. And I learned a long time ago when I started the company, I thought I was pretty clever, but I realized I had creative blind spots. And one way to avoid being embarrassed by your client was to actually build yourself a brain trust. A brain trust of people who are different than me, different experiences, different backgrounds, different perspectives, different ideas. That saved my butt and helped me grow a company. Since then, we've actually turned that into a process at Closer Look where no idea, no pitch, no solution, no deliverable goes to a client without going through what we call the pitch board. It's a flight check is what we call it. And the flight check means you put everything on the board and then everybody gathers around and asks questions. Not only the people who worked on the project, but other people can walk in and ask questions. And we've realized that the diversity of questions, when you're open to that diversity of questions, that leads to success. And you could only get that when you've got a diverse team.
First and foremost, thank you, Jose Luis, Claudia, por invitarme a este panel. Personally, I am Mexican, I'm immigrant, so I'm also diverse, okay? There are different things that we have to do within media. Personally, I can start a media company when I was coming in here, okay? I started Spanish public media because of the need within the community. That is extremely diverse, extremely diverse. I mean, you talk about Argentina, you could talk about Colombia. So I decided to start connecting with all the university radio stations throughout Latin America and Caribbean. Then I went to Europe. How diverse is this? And they're giving me Spanish content because we're not for profit. I saw a need within this country that yes, we are English speakers primarily, but we would be falling short if we do not speak Spanish in this country. Why? Because that is going to empower this country. Despite me being an immigrant, I still feel that this country has given me much more than what I expected when I came in through the border. As an undocumented immigrant for 13 years. Now, what I see, how is it that we can empower this community and bring it to the forefront is through media. But we have to speak to them in Spanish in order to bring them over. Okay? That's pretty much how I learned. Now, there are several things that I continue to do. Why? Because of the experience that I'm gaining, even though I'm not a media person. My business is janitorial, but that has paved the way for me to be able to do the things that I do. I'm a janitor. I dropped out of high school because I was undocumented. So that same experience has given me the ability to be diverse. How is it that diversity can give us knowledge? That's the key. Diverse people will give us knowledge. Don't be afraid of them. How many of you speak Spanish here? Thank you. That is going to empower the rest of Latin America because you have 6 million people, 600 million people on the other side of the border, all the way to La Patagonia. They speak this language. Therefore, that will give us the economy power within this country. It will give us so much more. So I'm going to just leave it there.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Tonis?
In my world, the business case is unequivocal, and I look at it two ways, from the standpoint of building my clients' brands and also from the standpoint of our agency. From the standpoint of building our clients' brands, for me, it's a case that I state again and again because still too few big consumer-facing companies are dedicating sufficient resources to the Latino market. So you want your brands to grow. This is the growing market. This is the younger consumer, which means that they are your future consumer. They are digitally savvy, which means you can reach them. And they have an affinity for brands. So this is something I say a lot. Now I'm looking, Ann Alonso from the Egg Board is here, and Anne's a Latina, and for the Egg Board, it's integrated and deeply understood. But for so many, still, even with large budgets, not enough investment going towards that audience.
You have described the perfect market, the
right?
perfect target.
That's what I think, Jose Luis. But I think we all just have to keep making this case. The second thing is, for my own organization, it's similar to what Richard said. It's like, as a leading edge creative organization, diversity is literally the formula for our creativity. It's where we get a good portion of our energy. And for us, it has been very simple. The more diverse we've become, the more creative we've become, the more awards we've become, the more successful. So it's been a beautiful thing for us.
Thank you.
Thanks. So, Jose Luis, you started off talking about diversity and diversity inclusion being kind of a good thing to do, potentially. And I think when people talk about it like that, they say, well, then, we want to do that, or that's something we should do. But at least for us, and I think similar to the other panelists here, it's something that we have to do. When we look at the mission for our company, it's creating value for all of our stakeholders. And when we look at the stakeholders, the first would be our clients. And with the clients, there's no doubt that we need to be a diverse company and have diverse client service teams for them. That's an expectation. So, we will serve them better and we will win more clients to the extent we have diverse teams. Second, with regard to our employees, our employees, not only do they want to work at a diverse place, but they want to work at a place where they feel welcome, that they feel included in what we're doing. So we have to have a diverse and inclusive workplace. As I say, I would like to work at a place where I feel that I'm a part of it, and I'm certain that all the other employees and my partners do as well. Third is the community. If we want to be an active and valuable part of the community and create value for the community, certainly we want to be employing a very diverse work group. And I can assure you, and I'm essentially betting my career and everything on the fact, if you do those three things right, the shareholders will do very well. And that constituency is important, but no more important than the others. And if you just focus on any one of those and get out of balance, that's where it all collapses.
Thank you, Mike. Clearly, all of you care about diversity. Could you share with us one or two things that you are planning to do in your companies to take it to the next level? 1, 2 things next year?
So, Jose Luis, for us, we can't just recruit from the bottom up. It's going to take too long. So I just want to call out Oscar Soros, who has joined our family of companies, the Zeno Group, and we're thrilled to have him because he's worked at the Wall Street Journal. He's been CCO at Wells Fargo. He's also been at Ford, and we're so lucky to have him. We have to make horizontal hires, and we have to, say we believe in this a lot because he'll draw a lot of other young ones along with him. We can't just have Anglos rise people. It has to be Hispanic.
At a closer look, we boil it down to two things: pathways and gateways. Really committing to building and paving pathways for Hispanics to find Closer Look, find their way to our company, and then broadening the gateways to actually let them feel welcome here. I remember about a year ago, one of my leaders, who's Latino, said to me, you know, Dave, Closer Look has been phenomenal in hiring for cultural fit. We need to become great at hiring for cultural add. That it's not just cultural fit, because that just leads to homogeneity. So when I talk about that with our entire team, you know, for this to work, obviously it has to come top down, but it also has to bubble up, and it has to saturate from the sides too. So the entire company has to embrace this. And I think the way that we've stumbled into naming this or framing this is building a culture of belonging. Because all of us know what it feels like to be left out. All of us have experienced that imposter syndrome, like, what am I doing here? But if we can create a culture of belonging or a culture of psychological safety where everybody can bring their true selves to work, then we're starting to create an inclusive environment.
I agree with you. In our case, at Spanish Public Media, we definitely, it's obvious that within media, and it was talked about before, that within media there is such a need of more folks to become reporters and so on. Well, through this network that I've been able to attach myself to, or ourselves to, throughout Latin America and Caribbean, there are opportunities where I can send kids from here that are bilingual to get a master's degree in Argentina or Spain. This is the future that I want to be able to build. Why? Because there is such a need, there's a market for these folks. If I send them from here, these are kids that are already integrated into mainstream society here, that understand the path. How is it that we can then be able to give them a better life? Just think of an intern, okay, that I can send to Spain for a year and come back with a master's degree. That is what we need to do. That is the empowerment. That's the platform that I want to build in order for us to truly bring the news, the talk shows, to folks that are primarily Spanish speakers. And that's me. I'm talking about me, the immigrant. That this is the masses that we're dealing with right now, okay? And there's so much stability within these masses in financial literacy. Personally, when I came here, I didn't have a bank account in Mexico, nor my mom, nor my eight siblings. So, how is it that I was able to integrate and to be among you? These are some of the things that we have to showcase out there. We here are the 1% Latino. What is it that we have to do and force ourselves to do to be in front of the masses? Media. Univision, I'm sorry, it's a commercial entity. They only have responsibility to their shareholders. Is that right?
So it seems you are passionate about this, right?
Sir, I lived it.
Thank you so much.
I need to give it back.
Thank you, Robert.
For us, it's three things. One is continuing our commitment to changing the complexion of the agency. We're about a third multicultural, but that means 2/3 is still white. And nothing wrong with that, but I think just staying very focused on that. We have people from 18 different countries, 5 of which from Latin American countries, and I think that is fueling our diversity in a very unique way. Second thing is continuing to attack unconscious bias. You know, we all have it, we carry it around every single day, and even if we're in a diverse environment, if we're not listening and not open to the people who are different from us opinions, we're not going to succeed. And then the third thing that we just did this February, we have a set of values, because I think values is what propels us, the best organizations. We have a set of values, 10 of them, and you know, things like makes the work better, we, not me, hand raiser, not finger pointer. Well, we've added one. And it's 11th, which is different unto itself, not to have 10, but 11th, which is seek different. And I really am excited about this because it says you should be doing that. We should, as an organization, seek different. We should do that on our teams, and we need to all think different. So, something new.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. So we've been doing over the last several months, a very detailed assessment of the current state of diversity and inclusion at Northern Trust. And it's been led, actually, I would say, partnering between Connie Lindsay, who's the head of our diversity and inclusion, and myself, and the head of our HR. And out of that, we are now in the stage of essentially formulating and implementing that strategy. And there are 4 key components, but I'm only going to mention 2 that I think are big drivers of this. And the first one is accountability. If you were to talk to a manager or leader at Northern Trust, they would be responsible for a number of different things, but there's a different level of accountability for those. But I could tell you that when it comes to their financial plan, they would tell you they're accountable for that financial plan or their budget, if you will. When it comes to diversity and inclusion, they would say, I'm trying my best on it and I hope for the best to come out of that. That's going to change. And they now are going to be held accountable for it. And just like anything else, though, you can't just hold someone accountable unless you also give them the information, the metrics to track it, and the resources to do that. So that's the other aspect of the accountability. And then the second one I'll mention, which I know others have mentioned, but it's important enough that I repeat it, which is around culture. Northern Trust is a company that has been around for 130 years. It has a very strong, tremendous, positive culture. Having said that, it's clearly not perfect. And when it comes to diversity and inclusion, that's an area of weakness. And so we have work to do on that front. Unconscious bias is part of that. But it's also just the evolution of society and the workplace, et cetera. We've evolved, but we haven't evolved far enough. So there are initiatives that go with that in order to change the culture along with changing things like accountability.
Thank you, Mike. Claudia showed this video where you see that there is this Hispanic promise inviting CEOs to embrace the Hispanic workforce in consumer. Clearly you get the meaning of diversity and you are making it really in your companies. What could we do, what this group of Hispanic leaders do to invite, convince, and influence many more CEOs to focus on the diversity issue and embrace, for that sake, the Hispanic promise?
70%. 70% was the number that I read that said in the next number of years, 70% of our workforce will be Hispanic. That's an incredible number, and frankly, it's a number that I did not know until I read it as a part of this process. So if you came to me as a CEO, as a business leader, and said, I've got a secret to an audience, to a set of customers that your competition hasn't touched yet, I would be all over that. So I think it needs to be framed as this is an incredible growth opportunity and will give you competitive advantage in the marketplace if you crack the code.
Great.
I guess I would just mention a couple of things. The first thing I would say, and maybe it's just a personal belief, is you start with yourself. And there's nothing more powerful than being a partner employee that is incredibly effective, just overall. A few of my colleagues are in the back here, and I work with them directly. In fact, Juan and I had an issue that we dealt with today, and he was on top of it, nailed it, et cetera. Being that type of partner who's performing that well and then representing that group, nothing can be more powerful. So starting with yourself. Second, I would say to this idea, you mentioned 70%. I would say there's the quantitative and the qualitative. There are very powerful, and I heard a number of statistics that were mentioned here earlier. Numbers are powerful, facts are powerful, right? So the fact that as part of the assessment we did, we can show on a piece of paper that Hispanics are being promoted at a lower rate than other groups. If you put that in front of me, how can I say that makes sense? Why should it be at a lower? There is no reason, right? So you have certain facts that are compelling, but then the qualitative part is very important as well. So again, we did a lot of work on surveys and interviews and focus groups. That's pretty powerful too. I mean, do you want to be the CEO of a company if somebody said, here's how it feels, this is what it feels like to be black or African American at Northern Trust, okay? And you read that and they don't feel good about that, that's something that is going to persuade you and influence you to try to fix that.
Jose Luis, I would
Yes.
add two other quick ideas. First, I would really like the Hispanic promise to be something that Hispanic employees recognize as a seal of quality for the company that is signed on. So like the Forest Stewardship Council, when I buy some lumber, I know it's certified. I want the Hispanic promise to be a mark of distinction. The second is, please make it easier for me to buy Hispanic. You know, my brother John, who's in the audience, is our sustainability guy, and he is deeply interested in buying from African American and Hispanic minority-owned business. Help us to help the entrepreneurs. We will do it. Just give us the list of the people to buy from.
Awesome.
I would love to see an analysis if you looked at companies that had in their executive leadership groups Latinos versus those that do not, that are pure, you know, in the same way we've done this, we've studied companies that have women represented. I would love to see the data on this because I'm absolutely confident it would add to the business case. Because I think the business case is the single biggest answer, which is you're talking to CEOs, you want to compel them. There is a compelling business case, but there might be data around organizations that have leadership where Hispanic leaders are a huge part of the driving force of the company, and I think they would stand out. Somebody ought to do it, right?
Thank you.
For me,
Robert,
it's easy.
something fast?
Diversity equals knowledge. That's it. Because if you do not allow another person that is different than you, religion, color, you are going to be able to learn from that person automatically. I mean, that was my first taught by my mother when I came in through Houston, Texas. It was an African American. I had never seen an African American. So she goes, hey, ven acá. Don't forget that the blood that is running through his veins is the same color as you, yours. So that taught me to be blind, colorblind, automatically. So I leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jose Luis, can I say
Yes.
one real quick thing?
Yes.
And you and I have talked about this. Many of us serve on boards, nonprofit boards. The Congressman Garcia talked about this earlier. There aren't enough board members on corporate boards. I will tell you that the word is out on the major nonprofit boards of any kind of cultural institution here in Chicago. If you like art, you like performing arts, you like ballet, you like dance, you like opera, those boards are yearning for Hispanic board members. Executives, people experience, people who are in love with the art. So if you want to find a way to connect and network with players in Chicago, find a museum or a cultural institution in Chicago, go in, call them up, find out how you can volunteer, and ultimately how can you serve on the board. And you will find the doors are open for that.
Wow. I think you will agree that we have received now some very important kind of nuggets of action items that we could really put in place and make a difference. I cannot resist just to share one of my learnings, and is that usually you think about the market and the workforce as two different things. When you connect those two, there is real power. I saw it at PepsiCo, connecting the Hispanic Employee Resource Group to the marketing brand for Mountain Dew, which was consumed 70% by Hispanics. And that combination just energized one to the other, and the story went to win 20 points market share in that brand. When you align the workforce to the strategy of the business, I believe that's when magic starts to happen. But with these thoughts, I would just like to close the panel by reminding you that you have a page in your folders that is an invitation to become ambassadors to the Hispanic Promise. And I think we have heard that there are several ways in which we can connect with CEOs and corporate executives and invite them to join. So I would really encourage you to become ambassadors for all of this. And I would like to close by thanking all of you. You have been incredible, and I enjoy your friendship too. Thank you.
If I may, don't go panel, if you don't mind, just like sit for a second. I want to personally thank you for being in this panel because it's sending a signal. And I know, and I've been dealing with a number of organizations and CEOs that don't want to expose themselves until they are already at the destination. And I know it takes courage, but sending a signal to us as a Hispanic community that you're not there yet, but you're ready to take the promise to start the journey. And that is something that we value. So thank you so much. And this is important because in all America, there are like dozens of corporate pledges, but none for Hispanics. So it is a great deal to have you as our first ever panel on the Hispanic Promise and start talking. Our community works really hard, but we don't bite and we don't know how to bark. So we're coming from the last point to trying to catch up to a number of other communities that we have to learn from women to African American. So having actually leadership, knowing that that diversity, let alone diversity, inclusion is key for your business. That is 70% of the workforce. That in an area of like young people willing to see which of these companies do I work for? Well, if I'm Hispanic, I want to see who is Hispanic friendly. So making that commitment and sending that signal is key. And today we announced that there were 50 companies that joined, and I hope that tomorrow we can say it's 100. So thank you so much for this panel. Thank you so much.